So far, we've focused on what the model says. Now let's focus on how it formats responses. Structured output simply means the model returns data in a predictable format. This is usually JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. This is the standard because JSON is one of the most widely used formats in the world for applications to exchange data. Structured output was one of the big advancements in AI that allowed it to start working alongside computers in a more predictable way. Structured output simply refers to a model outputting text in a structured format like JSON instead of text output. So let's look at a really simple example. If I said to an LLM, "How are you?" it might respond, without a structured format, "I'm good." On the contrary, if I had structured format, I might say, "How are you?" and then receive a JSON with the key message and the value, "I'm good." So why does this matter? Unstructured text is useful for natural communication and reasoning, but doesn't lend well to more complex systems that need consistent communication of information to work correctly. We're trying to get a bit more predictability out of a non-deterministic system so it can be useful to us in technical applications. If you want to evaluate or integrate with tools, you need consistency. Let's see a brief example of how to implement structured output in a real prompt. All right, so we're back on Latitude and we have a simple prompt here. You are going to have this prompt available below in the description. And what we're going to do here with this prompt is add structured output. So I've gone ahead and I've prepared this prompt to be quite typical. Here we have one thing that I would like to draw attention to, which is that we've set the temperature at 0.3. We've done that because lower temperatures work better when we're working with things like structured output. The system message says, "You are a helpful assistant that provides the capital of a country for a given country name and interesting information about that capital." So we're kind of expecting two pieces of information. We're expecting the name of the capital and some interesting information about that capital. Okay, so here in the user message, we have just country name and then we have the variable for the country name. All right, let's preview how it's working and then let's see how we can add structured output. So we go to preview. We write a country name in, let's say Argentina, and we hit run. We can see it's giving us the capital Buenos Aires, and we have some interesting information. So this is actually quite nice, but we don't really have it in JSON output, so perhaps if I wanted to send this to a data set or have this communicate with my application that I'm creating for maybe quiz questions, this would probably not be perfect for us. We would need to create a JSON output. And so how are we going to do that? We're going to go back to the editor, and we're going to add a schema. Now, let's walk through how a schema works. The first thing we're going to do here is go up to the front matter, and we're going to add a parameter called schema. Okay? Now, here's where we're going to write the schema. So the schema is written in YAML, and so there's a couple things that you might, if you're not familiar with, that you might have to get used to, but I'll try to explain how this works, but this can always be, you can always ask GPT to make one of these, can make a schema for you, or you can even ask our assistant Latte if you'd like. Latte is actually found right here in the corner. But these are pretty simple to make. So what we're gonna have to do is specify the type. So the type is object. This is gonna be pretty standard for most of your JSON output, so you can just kind of think of this, you can kind of forget about it and just always write type object. And then write properties. Now, here in properties are where you're gonna have those pieces of information that you need. So we've decided that we want the name of the capital and then interesting information about the capital. So we're gonna add those two. We write the name of one of the parameters, capital, and then we have to specify its type, which is a string. If you're familiar with programming types, this will be easy. And then we keep on specifying the other parameters. So in this case, we just have interesting. Okay, and this is also of type string. Now, once we have that, the final step to make this work is to go back to the level of properties. You can see this line right here that's lining us up with properties, and write a required section. And we're going to require those two parameters. And interesting fact. So now, after having made these changes and having created a schema for it, it's going to output a JSON. So we'll go here to preview. And now, if we run this again, we should get a JSON. As you can see here, now we have a JSON. So as we mentioned earlier, we have a JSON with keys and values. And you can see how that's properly formatted here. All right, so it's really as simple as that. That's all you have to do to create structured output in Latitude and more generally in prompt engineering. In the next lesson, we'll see how this applies to tool calling, which is a very important application of structured output.